Support for Good Noticings comes from Calvin Klein.
With the holiday season right around the corner, heat up, give Calvin. This year, give them what they really want. Shop Calvin Klein's gift guide to give people what they really want, like those incredible, iconic logo underwear, their perfect tees, perfect jeans, amazing knitwear,
timeless fragrances, loungewear. Their curated gift guides take the guesswork out of holiday gift shopping. So find the perfect gifts for him, her, or yourself. And their iconic logo underwear is now available in limited edition holiday prints.
Feel holiday heat and head to ck.com to find something for everyone on your holiday list.
Good noticings, Ashley. Good noticings to you, Claire.
This is Good Noticing.
Should we, off the top, just get right to announcements and get them out of the way?
Sure. What do you've got to announce?
Well, you and I have a giant book club coming up.
Oh my God, I'm so excited on Friday.
It's completely sold out, but I wanted to let you know I'm really excited. We're interviewing Katie Kitamura, and we will have like a full book club discussion on our Patreon on like a chat system, like a Discord-esque chat system on Patreon.
Patreon chats, they call it.
Patreon chats, that's a really good name for it.
Yeah.
So if you are a fan of her, we will be putting the interview up on the Patreon so you can listen and you can discuss with your fellow wormies. If you were a fan of Audition, I feel like there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot in there. I can't wait to reread it this week, except for I accidentally put it in a box and now I don't know which box it's in.
And if you are, oh my gosh, you'll find it when you unpack all the boxes.
Yay.
Or you could buy it again.
I
A real supporter of the arts.
gift a copy to a friend. That's what I might do.
So if you are signed up, we're so excited to see you. And of course, if you have signed up for either the Patreon or the non-Patreon tickets, if you're not going, please update your RSVP in the Posh VIP link because it was limited size and it did sell out quite quickly. And I understand that plans change and life happens, but we want to get as many people as possible into the doors. So that's number one. Number two is thank you so much to A24 for the free Eternity screening last night.
I'm so happy that we got to share that movie with the Wormios.
Yeah, Eternity, it's out next week, I think. And follow us on Instagram because we are going to be doing a lot more movie collaborations. I know for a lot of people, asking you to read a book for book club has been a mountain too far. But I think we all have 2 hours in our afternoon to go see a free movie. So we will be collabing a lot more with movie studios as they put out free showings of upcoming movies for the worms. Follow us on Instagram. This one sold out, I think, in an hour. And by sold out, I mean it was like a free ticket, but still, it filled up in an hour. So just follow us. Stay addicted to your phone. It's the only way to get culture these days.
Refresh, refresh, refresh. That's what I always say. Never stop refreshing.
And my final announcement about the Patreon and events and et ceteras is, as you will see in this episode, we are talking about Romantasy. And I will up top recognize my shortcomings as
a non-consumer of the genre.
Yeah, I've never read a Romantasy book, I don't think, or I've never gotten through one. In order to like put my money where my mouth is and be an ethical hater, a consumer first, a reviewer second, will read a Romantasy book for the Patreon. Let me know which one you guys want. I'll put up a poll in the Patreon, I guess.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I'll let you guys vote which
space.
book I read, and then I'll do a full hash out when we get there. And those are all my notes. Do you have anything to say?
No, I really think you covered it.
Wow, thanks. Ashley, I know you're moving this week. What is up with you?
God, it's so hard when you like feel like you've packed everything and then you open a drawer and you go, oh, my life is full of junk. I'm covered in junk all the time. And it's not junk because then I go through it and I go, well, these things are all quite crucial.
Like what?
You know,
what's something that to the first eye is junk, but on a second look is so crucial that you forgot it existed?
Like passports. You know, you open and you go, what's this doing here?
I thought you were going to say bobbleheads. I feel like you like randomly have a lot of bobbleheads.
Yeah, I do have a couple bobbleheads. That's, important stuff that's actually packed. Paper. I hate paper unless it's in the form of a book. And then you find these things and you go, well, I can't throw that away. I found this box under my bed because I used to run a lot of races before this marathon. Like back when I lived in LA, I would run all the time, like do races all the time. And I found this box of bibs. Like race bibs. And I was like, I can't throw away all my race bibs.
Why not?
All these sweaty little pieces of parchment. You got to keep them in a box under your bed.
Are you really keeping them?
Of course. From the memories. If I die, I want someone to have to touch these bibs.
That's something so fun about junk that I feel like I'm getting to. And the point with like my parents are so old, but they're in their 60s and they're looking to like start throwing out their basement junk, and I think my dad's having a hard time with it, and I want to be like, okay, it'll get thrown out. And I guess the question is this a you problem or a me problem?
Oh my God, do you know what? Something I threw out.
What?
My diploma.
Well, damn, I was just about to check your credentials. It just now dawned on me that I want to make sure you graduated college. That's really important to me.
Not a couple of years ago, like 7 years ago, my parents mailed it to me in a frame. And I said, why did you saddle me with this horse shit?
Did they think you were a dentist?
I guess so. They didn't read the fine print on the diploma.
This is for dental use only.
And it's just been in the back of my closet for like 3 moves now. And finally I said, this is going to the curb. What the fuck am I doing driving this diploma from city to city?
I'm judging you, but I know soon I'll have the hell of like, you know what I think my parents still have of mine? My cap and gown.
You have to throw that away. It's so flammable. It's like a hazard to have.
Yeah,
in your
it's like
home.
hairspray in cloth form. Why wouldn't you just rent those?
I thought you do rent them. I
But-
could see you not returning them.
Yeah, no, why would I? Okay, well, maybe that's the to-do for next year. Returning my cap and gown.
I have so many decorative bowls that I buy because I'm like, oh, it'll be an organized way to keep random items. And then you're moving and you're just like, the bowls have become the random items.
You need a bigger bowl.
I need a bigger bowl to put my bowls in so that the bowls don't look so chaotic.
That was a real. This is for all my messy gals out there. One of the great tricks of the world that it takes you years to learn. So heed my warning. If you are a disorganized person with like lots of random stuff, stop getting bigger bags that you can throw everything into. You must get a smaller bag that only fits the necessities.
That's
That's
so
why
true.
as soon as coat season comes around, I'm pockets only. If it's not in my pocket, I don't want it. You can't lose what's in your hands.
So untrue in my experience, the way that I put things down to smell a candle and then get miles away with no keys.
Yeah, but then you know where you were. You know what I mean? Anyway, we have to move on. There's other things. Actually, all of this moving, all of this experiencing, we barely talked this weekend. Do you have any recommendations?
Yes, I have my 3 recommendations. First of all, I'd like to start with the Levi's super low bootcut jean.
Have I ever seen you in them?
I'm wearing them right now.
We'll stand up and let me tell you if I double it. Wow, those look great, Ashley. Like a supermodel.
Here's my case for the Levi's super low boot.
And do you know the wash?
No,
Okay, like
But
blue.
I
It looks
actually-
blue.
just purchased them in a second wash,
Wow.
black, because I feel that this cut of jean is essential for what I'm hoping to be for my fall, winter, slightly more accessorized style. Instead of my usual sweater and jeans, my plan is to do sweater, jeans, belt, boots. And I feel like for the belt to make an impact, you have to have a low rise because otherwise the sweater just falls over everything.
Amen.
And then the boots are just important. These aren't the boots I'm planning to wear for more of an outfit.
Are those great boots?
These are really good boots.
Those are Gani, no?
Yeah.
I know people have asked me historically, what boots are those?
They're Gani.
And for some reason, something that, if you guys were ever in a duo podcast, something you'd quickly learn is people love to ask the other one questions about how great you look. People are always like, Ashley looked so amazing yesterday. Do you know what she was wearing? And I was like, nope, could tell you what I was wearing though. And they're like, that's okay. I'm really wondering about Ashley. I was like, that's so interesting. She's also on
Okay.
Instagram and also addicted to her phone.
That happens to me all the time. And one that I got recently more than once is they go, please tell me Claire's arm routine. And I kept going, first of all, I don't know.
I feel that you and I, through trial and error, are deeply uncompetitive and deeply happy for each other. And like, you know, a rising tides rides all ship, especially when you're on a podcast together. But it never gets fun to get someone else's compliments. I'm sorry. It isn't.
It's better when they're like, Claire looks so beautiful today. And I go,
People exclusively.
there's 2 people in the photo.
And it'll be like my Instagram of my wedding. Ashley's not, and they'll be like, Ashley looks so beautiful. Like, and then everybody, you know, there's sheep in the comment section. They're like, yeah, this is Ashley's day. And I'm like, interesting. I spent a lot of money, but okay.
How does Claire do her hair? You gotta ask Claire. Because actually, I could tell you step by step, but I'm not going to.
Listen, she has a house and you know the address and knock on her door. Anyway, so your jeans look great. Your boots look great. And Gani,
Yeah.
Levi's.
Gani, Levi's, vintage cashmere.
Wow. Okay.
Can I say I feel pretty good about it? Anyway,
Ask me again. Yeah.
so the Levi's super low boot, I think it's going to be a really important jean for the winter. I just bought a second pair in a different wash. My next recommendation is The Morning Show.
Oh my God. You know who loves the morning show?
Your dad.
My brother.
I just started watching it.
And he loved it season 1. Like, I was like, what did they send you? Like an access code? How'd you even hear about this thing?
A lot of people have been,
Secretly loving the morning show?
no, loudly. I think it's quite celebrated.
No.
I think my dad loves it. I think award shows love it. I think it's
Sure.
famously starring a real mega cast of stars. including the disgraced and now reestablished Billy Crudup, who I once loved as Russell Ham. He was my favorite actor for a minute. When people say, oh, the morning show is really good, they're telling you the truth. It is really good.
If there's two people that have never led me astray, it's your dad, my brother. And then recommendation 3.
My recommendation number 3 is an old episode of a podcast called Bandsplain that I've recommended a few times, but my favorite episode is the one where Ben Gibbard comes on to talk about the band Teenage Fan Club. I re-listened to it as like a real while unpacking comfort listen this weekend.
Oh,
and
I saw Teenage Fan Club with you live.
Yeah, I made
and
you go
I
with
was
me.
Struck
by how accountanty they looked.
Well, just by the lack of teenage anything in the room. I said the men on stage aren't teenagers. The people in the audience aren't teenagers. We were the closest thing to a teenagers in the building.
Williamsburg Music Hall.
And we were in our 30s.
And I loved every second of it. And I found out about them through this episode a couple years ago. And then I re-listened.
Wait, you found them this late? That's so crazy. I really assumed that they were like heritage band for you.
No, they're a band I discovered through an episode of Bandsplain, and then I just really liked them. They were like one of my most played albums of 2023 or something like that. And so 2023. And so then I went to go see them live, and sometimes I re-listen to the episode, and I really like it.
Awesome.
Claire, what are your recommendations?
That's kind of a 2-for-1 rec.
Yeah, a band and an episode.
Yeah.
Wait, and also that whole podcast. That's
Wow.
3 recommendations in one.
A real Russian nesting doll situation.
And you have my whole outfit. And then maybe once you're done, take a load off and watch the morning show. Claire, what are your recommendations?
Okay, I actually had like the most hobby weekend of all time. I did nothing but touch grass and use my hands and experience art.
Oh my God, I want to know about your knitting class.
I took a knitting class at the Brooklyn Craft
Company?
Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I can't believe how much I love it. I can't believe how much I've been like itching to get back to my knitting. It really scratched an itch that I think I felt the itch. I didn't believe that knitting would be enough. It's exactly what I want. And I'm so excited for this winter. It's the exact right thing to have while I'm watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Yes, because you don't really need to have you can pop back and forth.
And if anything, watching that show makes it more confusing because all the women look the same. So when you're watching it, you're like, wait a minute. I thought this one had an old husband and was excommunicated. Why is she here now with a young husband and a man named Mauricio? It's really actually easier to experience it as a podcast.
Okay, I've been watching it and I need to pick up my knitting again when I watch it.
So that's rec number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Rec number 2 is I went to such a sexy little speakeasy bar.
Ooh.
I had this day where me and Mac, we did a knitting class, and then we went to this bar right after, and then we went to a concert. It was really like, well, aren't we getting our New York City money back in culture and experiences? Isn't this what we thought we'd be doing? That it's taken about 8 years of dating and marriage and planning and prepping and a couple birthday gifts to align exactly in the way that we thought we always would be. Yeah, it's called Karasu in Fort Greene. I'm sorry that this is such a New York specific one, but I'm very rarely, I don't think ever in my life have I used the phrase like a sexy date night spot, but it really was. It's a speakeasy. We had that experience, which is so humiliating, which is when you're going to a speakeasy, but you don't know.
Back and forth.
So you're just walking around the corner being like, I don't see it.
That happened to me on a date. I was so mad. I had to walk through a fucking vending machine and I had no idea. I just kept walking up and down the street texting him being like, I don't know.
I guess it's not for me. I can't see it.
And he was like, no, I'm inside. It's real. And I was like, I don't think it is. I don't know what's going on. And he didn't say it was a speakeasy. He didn't say go through the vending machine. He just said, I'm here.
Okay, well that's...
And I was like, actually, I want you dead.
Anyway, this one is through, I think it's Walters, but it's really good. And like if you and the gals are going out, it's right by Brooklyn Paramount, which is a venue. I feel like it's
beautiful venue.
I really recommend it. And then my final rec, which is actually kind of a false rec.
Uh-oh.
I went to this concert.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it's like very, like if you're like, oh, I agree with Claire's picks. I wouldn't say this is like my music, but I do think it's worth giving a shout out. I went to see Cindy Lee, who is an artist who is not on Spotify, which is kind of the theme of this week. We have a lot of like streaming articles. We have a lot of women's nonsense. Women, can they make art?
Cindy Lee got off Spotify doing girly women's nonsense.
The people there were rapt. They loved her. I was like in awe that somebody not on Spotify could sell out 2 nights at the Brooklyn Paramount.
It's a big venue.
People really love her, and I really recommend getting off your butt and checking her out on SoundCloud. I just think that she is music that a lot of people would like if they found it, but it's the barrier to finding is a bit higher than normal with her not being on Spotify. So I wanted to shout it out. It's real cool kids stuff. So if you're looking to like poser it up, this is like a real name that I think will get you a lot of credit in certain corners of Bushwick. I actually saw Dan from the Middlebrow podcast there. He did not seem excited to talk to me.
Okay, well, what are you, a West Elm credenza?
He heard that I recommended CB2 last week, and he said, I actually can't be spotted with you. Not at the Cindy Lee concert. Anyway, so yeah, I would like to recommend her. And then I'm currently reading The Bee Sting. And then this weekend, I actually watched Interstellar and The Lives of Others. So those are 3 pieces of media we will be discussing on the Patreon this week.
And Mormon Wives. I also started watching it last night. In today's episode, we have quite a list of things to discuss. We are going to be talking about Charli XCX's Substack. We are going to be talking about Lady Gaga. We are going to be talking about Romantasy.
There was a big article that went quite viral on Twitter with some blowback about what's the deal with Romantasy? It's long, and I read it for you.
We're going to talk about streaming. There was quite a long article called What's the Deal with Streaming?
You'll never believe it, but those communists over at M+1 have some issues.
I'll give you a little guess if you haven't quite figured it out. It turns out the big streamers are only out for cash.
Aye.
And we're also going to be talking about the state of the film industry. Is it fine?
Spoiler alert, no.
More at 6. Over to you, Claire.
I know you wanted to start off with a fun intersection of intelligentsia and club kid culture and the pop culture. Where does it all come together? None other than Substack.
The girls are on Substack. So Charli XCX started a Substack with a single post called Running on the Spot in a Dream. This Feels Good Right Now by Charli XCX, November 12th, 2025. I want to almost talk less about the contents of this Substack, which we can run through pretty quickly, and more about the response to it and just like the ongoing conversation about celebrity PR in the age of social media and now Substack. So basically she writes about how post-Brat summer, she felt the common stress of like, well, people are loving this. Will I ever be able to write anything that people like ever again? Will I ever be able to even write again? And then Emerald Fennell called and said, I'm making Wuthering Heights. Will you make music for it? So she made a bunch of songs for Wuthering Heights. And that's something she's very excited about right now. And she's feeling very creatively fulfilled by writing the music for Wuthering Heights and then also writing movies and acting in movies. What I find very interesting is that the only quotes I saw about this Substack before opening it and reading it for myself were the ones about Brat era, how being Brat made her feel, how the response to Brat made her feel. I thought the whole thing was going to be about
like looking back on Brat.
Yes.
Instead, it's sort of the opposite. It's about like what to do post-Brat.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that so fascinating because one thing that I see a lot on social media is a response to celebrity actions that are considered unsavory. I think Sydney Sweeney is a good example of this, right? Where people will sit there going, where's her PR? Where's her PR? Like, why isn't her PR handling this? People have this like odd overarching belief that PR is like a puppeteer god that you can hire to control you and make sure the reception of you is perfect.
And it's funny because I also saw a lot of that in like our conversation about Sydney Sweeney. I saw a lot of people, especially on TikTok, going like, well, this is what her PR told her to do. And we can't shake this idea of celebrity as marionette.
And one thing, though, that I want to say is with Sydney Sweeney, maybe this is what her PR told her to do.
Yeah, but she's still an adult woman who could, in the moment here, were you trying to do a white supremacy ad and say, no, of course not.
But what I meant is that I think that when people have this reaction of like, well, where's her PR? Where's her PR? Like that is the PR at work. Like that is a publicist being like, do this bombastic or incendiary or like unsavory thing to get attention because there is no attention on simply creative pursuit anymore. Like there is no attention or interest. Like right now, this piece, I imagine it's in Substack because there was no PR traction for Charli XCX writing music for Wuthering Heights. Like not none, but I think not in the way she wanted to.
2 things. One, I feel like what your analysis is leaving out is how people of our generation are celebrities and inherently understand how social media works. I think we look at Lucas Gage, who was on this podcast, and what did his PR team do for him with us?
None.
What did they do apparently for the rest of his press tour that we've heard from big companies?
None.
And who was driving 100% his PR?
Lucas Gage.
Via the DMs.
So you think she's like extremely aware of the power of a Substack over doing a profile?
Well, here's what I would say secondarily. I guess I'm not disagreeing with you, but my addendum is I think we have to stop separating celebrity and PR and this idea that like part of being a successful anything is being good at the marketing of self.
Mhm.
You could be an artist, you could be a construction worker, you could be a dentist, you could be a psychotherapist. If you know how to harness social media, or if you know how to outsource it to someone who can harness it, like that's just as important as the skill itself. Some people just get it. Addison Rae, like you could hire the same team as Addison Rae. You're not going to get what Addison Rae got.
Mhm.
She just gets it. She has what it takes. I think the secondary thing I'd like to say about Substack is I was reading the Emily Sundberg. I was reading her Twitter account and she was taking screenshots of what people in her feed me, that's her Substack chat, were saying about the Charli XCX joining Substack conversation. And a lot of people were saying what you were saying, that like anyone, be it your team, be it yourself, who knows how to market themselves in this day and age knows you have to be more than an artist. You have to be a thought critic. You have to be multi-hyphen. And then somebody else goes, well, I was just at a play the other day and I overheard a girl who works at Substack talk about how intensely they're courting celebrity people.
Mhm.
And we have had conversations with Substack about the money they're throwing at people to join Substack. They are coming for Patreon right now. They're coming for podcasting right now. They're coming for Twitter, as we've seen. They are trying to become an all-in-one social media conglomerate. I wonder if it's just as deep as they went to Charli XCX and said, here's $50K to post a Substack. And like, what is she going to post about? Of course, she's going to inherently like promote her own projects.
Of
and,
course.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's so like, what else would you talk about? But I do wonder if it's as deep as she's like, yeah, I'll take the money as it comes. And Substack offered her some insane amount of money to join Substack. And it's like not against her. Like she is kind of like the cool girl. Why wouldn't she have a Substack? If she wasn't as famous as she is, she'd have a Substack.
I guess I agree with you, and I'm sure they paid her a lot of money to post that Substack, but I do still think there's something in the fact that she used this Substack in a very like specific way, and the pull quotes from it, like it did garner a lot of press all about her response to Brat that was like not at all reflective of what was actually in the Substack post. And I do think it like brings forth still the overall conversation of like what is PR, and it's obviously there's still like shaping personas, and still like the crux of that role is like garnering attention. I still think in the way that people say like, well, where's her PR? What's her PR thinking? I'm like, her PR was thinking that you would make a video saying, what's her PR thinking? Why did she do this? And that's more eyes on her. Yeah. Like you're still talking about it and you're still talking about her.
Yeah, this idea that PR is like a mega mind. No, PR is reaching out to people and seeing if they can get you attention.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a really good example of the way people believe PR is this like all-powerful puppeteering being when, you know, they got attention and the attention was still all for Brat.
Yeah, if PR was as brilliant as you guys think they are, where like every time they like close their eyes, it's a secret symbol.
Yeah.
She would be able to dominate the narrative. But at the end of the day, it's like the appetite of the consumer that dominates the narrative.
And the appetite of the consumer is still the first two sentences of like 1,000 words.
Yeah. Support for Good Noticing comes from Calvin Klein.
There's something so satisfying about the perfect pair of underwear. It sets you up to feel sexy and confident no matter what you're wearing on top. And that's exactly what Calvin Klein is known for. It's iconic under everything.
With the holiday season right around the corner, heat up, give Calvin. Shop their iconic underwear styles and limited edition holiday colors and prints. It's perfect for everybody on your shopping list. Heck, I'd even buy them for myself. Sometimes my favorite person to shop for is me.
Oh, that's the hardest part about the holiday season, when you're scrolling through a gift guide and you go, you know who these gifts would be perfect for.
Listen, you could hope somebody's going to get you a perfect set of Calvin Klein underwear in the holiday colors, or you could just cut out the middleman and get them for yourself. Be your own Santa, I always say.
From classics like holiday underwear to logo tees, iconic denim, cozy sweatshirts, and loungewear.
This season, give them what they really want. Feel holiday heat, head to ck.com to get the perfect gift for everybody on your list, all in one place.
Support for Good Noticings is brought to you by Starbucks.
With Starbucks, every little sip makes the holidays more magical.
My favorite holiday beverage since the first time I took a sip of it tepidly years ago, I said, oh, I'm overcome with holiday spirit and joy. It's the peppermint mocha.
I love the caramel brulee latte. I actually introduced my husband to eggnog and like at home for Christmas. And it was the first time he'd ever have it. And he loved it so much. And then the next day he was like, you'll never believe what they have at Starbucks, an eggnog latte. And so we like love to go get a little eggnog latte together. Kind of our Christmas tradition.
Come together over your holiday favorites at Starbucks.
I feel like I'm this podcast's like Twitter correspondent. I feel like I am coming to you live from the war zone that is X.
You are the last living woman on Twitter.
Yeah, there's about 20 of us and like I'd say 200 men and then a lot of porn bots and then a lot of people who are like, Grok, is this penguin real? Grok, did Elon Musk really get big boobs yesterday? Grok.
Okay, my favorite thing about revised My least favorite thing. But the way people talk to AI is like they're tattling to their mom, like a 2-year-old, when they're like, Mom, someone at school said Santa's not real. Is that true? Mom, wait, okay. So I was at the mall and they said that girls can't wear blue.
I love it when people use grok to explain a joke they don't get. Grok, can you explain what we're looking at in this photo? Grok, what's the bit here? Listen, if you are at a state where you're asking grok to explain the Twitter joke to you, either get off Twitter or get deeper into Twitter. But where you stand is not okay. It's not grok's fault.
Grok doesn't know. Grok failed out of art school and now he's Hitler.
I will say, I guess recently there's been an article in the New Yorker about USAID and the way USAID was canceled by Elon Musk, everybody's favorite, and that speculatively about 600,000 people have probably died because of it. And they were like, Grok, is that true? Is it true that Elon Musk is bad, Grok? And would you believe it? Elon's little boyfriend went, no. They're just kidding.
They're just kidding about these statistics. Statistics are all a joke. Listen to Elon and buy crypto.
So anyway, long story short, something happening over on the Twitterverse this week was Escape Artist, Romantasy at the End of the World by Daniel Yadin. This is an article that kind of delves into the genre of romantasy, which is, I will say, the last existing genre in publishing. I'll pull some stats here. Onyx Storm, which is Rebecca Yaros's third installment of Fourth Wing, sold 2.7 million copies in its first week this past January, making it the fastest selling adult fiction release since Bookscan even began tracking sales 20 years ago. Basically, books like ACOTAR and Fourth Wing, and I guess that is A Court of Thorns and Roses, are like the only books selling right now. They make up like 75% of the books that are being purchased. They've sold something like 40 million copies in the last 10 years.
Bible numbers for real.
And I mean, and this guy will point out the way that the people talk about it is akin to something you'd expect in a religion. So this is kind of like a deep dive into what it is. And I will say it's quite long. I guess it's ultimately a literary analysis of what it is that people are getting out of these books that they love so much. And, you know, through it, he goes through the stats, he goes through the kind of the main players, and then he looks at the common tropes, and then he looks at the history of it. And then he talks about like one of the big conflicts within the universe of romantasy is that even though they are the best-selling books right now, they don't get a lot of literary credit. They don't receive a lot of accolades. They're not taken seriously by the critics.
And this is what you're going to look into on the Patreon mainly.
Well, I'm going to read one of these books and just find out what's going on here. And it is interesting because a lot of it is porn. Like, I don't know. Okay, so basically, writers and authors of this genre feel that they're not taken seriously. And then, of course, readers of this genre feel that they're not taken seriously. And then ultimately, he looks at like what it is that people love about it so much. And he kind of hones in on this idea that one, it's predictable, which is nice. It's nice that there's always a happening ending. And then two, it's quite obvious. He kind of relates it, which I had already come to this conclusion, but the idea of like Taylor Swift lyrics, it's almost like a literary Sudoku where it's a puzzle, but it's easy to figure out. And then it can go as deep as you want it to go without actually asking much of you. There's a lot of like, the mountain is gray. And if you look at the evil man's name, his last name means gray in Latin. And if you think about it, he runs the kingdom that is on that mountain.
Something I find a little bit off-putting about romantasy and like the genre itself is, listen, I know that most fiction can be broken up into tropes, but the way that they have identified tropes that become these steadfast pillars that you identify very concisely.
Like the way that the hashtags, like hashtags friends to lovers, hashtag doomsdaddy, hashtag, like, and he's saying even that that's part of the success is that it's so easy for these authors to kind of hone in on exactly what people are looking for and give them exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So he does kind of get to this conclusion of one, obviously it's like a fairy tale escapism. It's nice for it to be landing at this obvious endpoint where everything works out. And because these worlds are so often like doom and gloom, it kind of mirrors our own, that the world is ending. Will our heroine become queen? And guess what? She does. And his giant throbbing member pierces her the entire time.
Yay.
She's shattering an orgasm. He has a freaky tongue and it's got knobs on it that, guess what? Hit the clit every time.
Can she have it all? Yes.
If all is like the scepter, the most winningest dragon, and his fat cock, then yeah, she will have it all. So that's like one thing. And then also this idea that like language around primal is used a lot. Something that he comes to that I think is interesting is this idea that these are all self-actualized women in one way and that they're powerful warriors. They end up being at the top of their class, so they end up being the ruler of the domain. But also there's all these like tricks where his primal lust for her comes out. Like there's this idea that at the end of the day, who we really are is just a straight man and a straight woman who want to be married. And he wants me so bad, he might assault me. But isn't that kind of sexy? Like a lot of agency is removed. And then also this idea of predestination, that there's like, you know, everything as it was written in the stars. In this world where you come out an empowered woman, you also had very little choice in the matter. It was all picked for you. He was under a magic spell when he fucked you, and the magic spell said, what do you want more than anything? And guess what? In his deepest, darkest soul, he wanted you. And even though you guys are enemies right now, how nice is it to know that he couldn't help but want to fuck you? You know what I mean? So something else he said that I thought was quite interesting is this idea of like, if you think of it as a grown-up fairy tale, fairy tales and like children's book came into the vernacular only once we had considered children. And this is like kind of like a grown-up fairy tale. And that we do right now have this kind of like middling adolescence of like being in your late 20s, early 30s. Like we're putting off having children. I don't know. We're in our 30s. I don't feel like an adult necessarily. Like, you know what I mean? There is this sense of like fewer people own homes. Fewer people are getting married later. They're having kids later. Things are so uncertain. There's like a new genre almost of fiction that's emerged as this like the adultified porn fairy tale.
Yeah.
Which is like books for kids that fuck now.
This whole argument of like, why don't we take it seriously? I guess my two questions are, one, well, is it serious? And two, why does it need to be?
And I want to agree because some of the backlash on Twitter obviously is that they're like, how dare this man show up and be so misogynistic and undermining women's passions, which is getting fucked by a knobby alien. By like a barbarian who's got weird fingers, but they fill you so, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
How dare you not take that serious? I have to agree with you, Ashley. One of my longer forming beliefs is I feel like something that's happened recently in the genre of women's interests is that like in order to be taken seriously, we have to like intellectualize them. Like in the way that like, I don't know that reality TV is any stupider than sports.
It's definitely not.
Like the dialogue is not better written in a football game.
And no one is getting like more or less CTE in any of the two categories.
Yeah, one of them is drinking themselves to death. One of them is ramming themselves in the head to death. Like it's two groups of people putting their bodies on the line in goofy outfits.
Two blood sports.
With absolutely zero real outcome, except for that in Real Housewives, sometimes people fucking die. I guess in sports, sometimes people die. It's truly the same.
Yeah.
Recently, in order for things to be taken seriously, I feel like we see it even in the personal finance space, this idea that when women get their nails done, that's like an unnecessary luxury that you should be cutting back on. But, you know, men's activities are seen as important to who they are and their identity and stuff.
I mean, golf is an extremely expensive
Yeah.
and like climate destroying hobby. And yet.
And so I do think in a push to like fix it, there's been this taking seriousness of like women's basest interests, which is a lot of this stuff is like printed out fanfic. A lot of it is porn. Reality TV is not brilliant art. And I feel like there's this era that we're still in of like, well, if you talk about reality TV or if you talk about ACOTAR on Reddit with your English degree in tow, now suddenly it's like an intellectual art form.
And I also want to caveat and say I think there are intellectual conversations to be had about it. It's just not all of them are or need to be.
And then I'm sorry, a lot of times just being bitchy in your group chat, you might have a master's degree and you're like talking about it with your friends, but like your memes are not an essay. And I say this including my, like part of the reason I wanted to stop Celebrity Memoir Book Club was I felt really sick of like trying to have these intense conversations about stuff that like I didn't want to take books more serious than they were taking themselves. Like I felt sick of like spending all of my mental energy analyzing things that were not really meant to be analyzed at that level. And not that, obviously I think in some ways CNBC was important. Like I do think there's larger narratives that like reveal things about society. But I do think what has happened is people take talking about keeping up with the Kardashians through a lens and use it in lieu of like consuming actual art. And right now, you have to make the effort because it's not being equally fed to you because everything's streaming an algorithm and like you have to make an effort to be watching and reading thoughtfully created content. Otherwise, you will be fed slop over and over again, telling yourself, but you're thinking about it in a Hegelian way.
Listen, I like talking about slop. We do it a lot. I watch
I'm a fucking pig.
4 episodes of All's Fair for the Patreon. Okay?
I listened to the Mormon Wives.
You can only be looking at it through a lens so much as you have a lens. if you're only consuming slop and then you believe that you're returning to it with these like nuanced takes, but all you're consuming is slop, your takes are now like too fucking steeped in slop to even know which way is up. You have to be consuming art and consuming literature and like thinking about other things in order to then return to these other projects. You
have to keep that muscle. Yeah, you have to keep that muscle sharp. And I think right now we've made it very easy for ourselves to let ourselves off the hook. If you could say I read all weekend, I'm sorry, if you were reading Fourth Wing all weekend, that's not the same.
And that is also a fine thing to read all weekend. It just is a different activity. Like in the same way that watching cinema is different than watching
the Lindsay Lohan Christmas movie.
The Lindsay Lohan Christmas movie. Both things are okay to watch. It's just not the same thing. And it's not necessarily disparaging to one thing to say that it's not the same thing. And I think this is where we've gone wrong. Or like this is what's become so contentious is that by saying reading Fourth Wing is not the same as reading literature, you're now saying and reading the Fourth Wing is stupid and worthless.
Or that because you like it, it needs to be given credit by... It's fine. So what?
That's what I'm saying, though, is like it doesn't have to be an insult. It just is a different thing. And I feel like it's become, because of the ways women's hobbies have been notoriously demeaned, it's become this like very negative connotation to say that it's not the same thing. And it just isn't the same thing. Neutral.
Listen, some of the blowback on Twitter is like, should this man be showing up and belittling these women? And I agree. Fuck this guy. Honestly, this article was too long. Congrats, buddy. You got to read 22 Romantasy books.
And like the men who are like reading Dan Brown book after Dan Brown book in an airport, like at them too.
If that. Do men read?
No, I don't know that they can.
I would say a similar comp actually would be like men's self-help nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
If you're reading one more time, like the glucose versus fructose, like
Jesus Christ.
Sauna versus red, whatever. Whatever. Leadership. I said your name and shook your hand and then immediately asked a favor. Like men have stupid shit too, but we have to reach this like neutrality so that we can go back to like valuing things. And I guess, you know, I actually want to call the theme of this week's episode. It's called Making Art in Society, ... question mark, ... period. Do you know what I mean? ... slash. Like, yeah.
Society as a whole. Is it whole?
Art in society? How's it going? Because I think the thing that's really interesting to me is, and this is something he brings up, authors of romance are not alone in feeling excluded by the establishment. The astonishingly successful fantasy writer Brandon Sanderson, whose books have sold more than 45 million copies, once asked on his blog, why is fantasy and other genre fiction looked down upon in the literary world? He described having been rejected from MFA programs at most of the top schools in writing, some of which he claimed categorically did not accept genre fiction. You can't use their rules to define what makes good literature, folks, Sanderson declared. The genres of genre fiction contain enormously popular books while still functioning as subcultures, suffering their slights and maintaining their intricate codes of membership. Conquest of the best-selling list is no salve for the critics' withholding of their approval, their taste, whether or not there is a there. This man, his name is Brandon Sanderson, has sold 45 million copies of his book so far. And he's feeling very frustrated that he wasn't even accepted into an MFA program. And he goes, so clearly these elites at their schools have no sense of what makes a good book, because here he categorically has a good book. How could he have a bad book that sold 45 million copies? True.
And was The Life of a Showgirl the best album of all time?
Conquest of the bestseller list is no salve for the critics withholding their approval. Basically, it's like a lot of these people, even though they're so successful, are still upset that they're not taken seriously. And to this, I say, the three truths are that people are always going to make art that reflects their society. No human beings are ever going to have a perfect society. Whatever somebody has, they want something else. And I do think that those things are true in all art, because it's like, well, what would you rather be? The critically acclaimed guy who still has to have a part-time job because nobody's buying his fucking books? Like, yeah, 45 million people have bought your books. Is that not enough for you? At some point, it is like, why do you have to have everything? The Taylor Swift conundrum.
Yeah, like, why do you have to have the awards and the rankings and the money, and like, you have to pick some.
And I think this is true for both the readers and the writers of this genre. I don't know, if you've been punctured by his throbbing member, that's not good writing.
To be punctured. Ow.
Well, I think on TikTok they say cracked now.
Oh yeah,
like
getting your back cracked.
Me. Don't crack me. I'm a person. I'm not a pistachio.
Yuck.
And again, I don't know if I already said this, but should this guy have written this article? Probably not. I feel that there's a way to write it from the position of somebody who likes it. I agree that, like, I think we need to be more strenuous about, like, categorically female things that we judge and whether or not they're high art, blah, 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 blah. But also like, fuck this guy, honestly. You're right. It sucks having to be empowered. And sometimes you want to go home and you want to get cracked. You nailed it. You figured out the secret to these women's secret lives.
I feel like we come down hard on these books sometimes. And I don't think there's anything wrong with them. And I think that they seem very fun to read. I watch The Vampire Diaries. Like, I'm not above the genre.
I watch all of it. But I don't sit there and go, well, great. Now I'm filled with the thought of culture.
Yes. And I think that's the thing that I feel like everyone needs to agree upon is different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine. It's
fine.
not bad. It's not bad to not always be consumed with culture.
Mm-hmm. Again, my favorite movie?
27 Dresses.
No.
Something Borrowed. Mine's 27 Dresses.
Mine's Something Borrowed. It brings me joy every time. My favorite scene in all of cinema? That scene where Mr. Gray's helicopter goes down and everybody's watching it on TV and then he walks in and it's never really mentioned again. Nothing cheers me up like that moment. He was, Ashley, but he's out now. It's fine.
You know, I haven't seen that movie.
Okay, then don't fucking question it.
I know, but you just spoiled all of it.
No, it's literally an irrelevant scene that never comes up again and isn't built towards at all. It's just a moment that happens.
I like the scene at the end of that Robert Pattinson movie where
he reveals it's been 9/11 all the time.
Yeah.
Support for Good Noticings comes from Starbucks.
With every sip, Starbucks makes the holidays feel a little more special.
Enjoy delicious holiday favorites like the peppermint mocha. Did you know that me and my husband actually got together because of a Starbucks at the holidays?
Well, tell the story.
Okay. When I just had a crush on him and he just had a crush on me, every single day at work, we would go for like an afternoon coffee and we'd have to bring the whole office so that we pretended we weren't flirting. And then finally, one of the Starbucks employees we were friends with like asked a guy that worked with us, so like, what are those two dating? Because we were always chatting. And then our friend was like, yeah, the guy at Starbucks thought you guys were dating. Isn't that crazy? And we were both like, ha ha ha, crazy. And then finally my husband asked me out on a date. And it was because of the Starbucks employees. So I actually owe my whole marriage to Starbucks.
Come together over your holiday favorites at Starbucks. Okay, should we talk about streaming?
Yes.
Now that we've covered the written word.
The multiple art forms, the written word and streaming.
Okay, so in N+1, there is a piece called The Same Stream Twice. Cultural products are more than ever a class of financialized assets, whose owners are even further removed from art making. And it is about the way that streaming has sort of turned all art into commodities for trading.
Can I say this was, again, kind of a long essay that I don't know that it had any particularly new points except for to like help codify the thing you felt in your bones already of, well, this can't be good. It can't be good that I'm specifically Googling ambient noise to not notice in the background and that's somebody's like artistic craft.
I think that out of all of the streaming articles I've read, I don't know that his point necessarily stuck with me or even if there was much of one, but I felt like less doom and gloom about streaming.
Well, okay, you know, that's so funny that I'm realizing now that we're having this conversation. This is the music article version ripoff. Everything's derivative, actually, of Will Tavlin's article that we read in N+1 about Netflix and about how they are actually explicitly making content on Netflix for you to watch in the background of being on your phone, which I do feel was...
I think that's an article we cite all the time.
And I did feel like that like had a point, and there's an expose aspect of that article.
This article kind of synthesizes a couple different pieces in 17 different directions and then wraps it up in a way that doesn't quite go anywhere for me.
But ultimately it has the same point of the Netflix article, which is, you know, the truth of all streaming, all being on your phone, all of these people who in the attention economy, what they want is your clicks. They don't necessarily even want your full attention. So what does that mean for the art form that they're serving to you on a platter? And guess what? When they're trying to make music that you don't notice, it's actually like not good for the art form.
Right.
Anyway, so sorry, continue. So tell them more about it.
So it talks about the way that Spotify kind of
was a response
to the way the internet disrupted the music industry as a whole. So people were illegally downloading music via MP3, and Spotify was one of the first platforms to really embrace the MP3 and say, how can we turn this into a service instead of letting people just like steal music like crazy? Like revenue was in an absolute free fall before Spotify ever was a twinkle in your eye.
In 1999, the music industry sold about $25 billion worth of albums. That's been like adjusted for inflation. And at its like lowest in 2014, they sold what? 6 $6 billion worth of music. So it like took a huge hit. Obviously, nobody knew what to do. And something interesting is Spotify was originally created to be like a Google for music. His name is Eck.
Daniel Eck. We've actually seen him before, and he's
really compelling and beautiful,
really
right? I remember thinking
cute.
that should be Ashley's boyfriend. In this, it says he gave $100 million personally to a AI surveillance military business, though. So
Yeah, I think he does a lot.
But I bet you could change him.
Spotify is one of those where you go, why? Why?
Why are you so secretly evil? Like sometimes I'm like, so you got into the game so people could have more music. When did you go and I must support the military if that is like on the route to becoming a super billionaire? Like, it's so funny the way that people will be like, I'd love a boat. And then suddenly they're like, if I don't own the oceans. You go, why wasn't the boat enough?
You've got a boat and people liked it.
People loved it. People loved coming on your boat and listening to your music.
What happened here? So essentially, Spotify started out as like a music search engine almost to be able to find any music you liked. They kind of tripped into playlists.
He says, so the three main music groups are Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Music Group. And they control 80% of all recorded music released through a recognized label. Something they figured out before Spotify figured out. So Spotify came to the US in 2011. Right away, they recognized that there was power in the playlist. And that was something that Spotify did not know about itself until like 2016, 2017. So they were hiring groups or like buying out companies that were creating these curated moment-based playlists that'd be like getting ready for dinner, going out with your friends. And then they'd pull music from the parent group so that you were only listening to Sony music to essentially like feed you only streaming revenue for one company.
They sort of rebranded as music for every moment, and then they moved into these moods. Organizing music by mood is a way to transform it into a new type of media product. It's about selling users not just on moods, but the premise of the very concept that mood stabilization is something within their control. So then you have people starting to use Spotify for these like temperaments, like I want to feel relaxed, so I'm going to find relaxation music.
This in turn drove musicians to produce new recordings specifically composed for playlist placement. In a nod to clickbait, which marked a similar moment of commercial and editorial convergence in digital journalism, this woman, Pelly, coins the term stream bait to describe songs created for the sake of engagement. Over time, though, the quest for a frictionless user experience resulted in a deluge of frictionless music and ease of use that in turn facilitated easy listening.
So then this sort of shadow industry of music creation and packaging came to be of these smaller companies making essentially AI slop music before AI slop music to feed into Spotify to just like get streaming revenue from people who were just listening to nothingness. And because they can negotiate a better deal with Spotify than like UMG, who is trying to keep their business afloat, also having to pay royalties to the musicians, etc. These companies that are creating music just to be background streaming music.
They're basically like Spotify allowed people to choose to bring music into their own home.
Yes. So these companies, it's like cheaper for Spotify to work with them. Therefore, they're seeding them into playlists more because it's better for them when that music gets streamed more.
And it's interesting because it went originally, obviously, it was chill, but then they look at the case study of hyperpop, which at one point did exist as a playlist called Neon Party. But then because of a data scientist at Spotify, they're like, hey, a bunch of like young queer kids are looking for the word hyperpop. They changed Neon Party to hyperpop, lowercase, to meet the demands. Like they have perfect information now. And he just said it's an interesting look at like, if you look at punk music and how long it took to form and then popularize and then go mainstream, it took like 10, 20 years. Whereas hyperpop went from like being a basement creation of like gay teens in Ohio to a Spotify playlist moneymaker slop, AI copyable nonsense machine in like 3 years.
Yay.
It's also interesting as Joe Coscarelli and John Caramonica, they coined the term Spotify core to describe sonic qualities like chill beats and hushed voices. And they kind of looked at people like Post Malone, who's genreless in the way that you can put him on any
type of playlist.
And then also they're even saying like the sound of Billie Eilish, like does kind of rise out of these sonic tones, like the hushed voice, like the chill vibe.
Like she is someone who's able to thrive because of the tastes that have adjusted to.
Yeah, her music is being born out of the moment. I also found this interesting. It's dizzying to watch a 125-year-old industry, one that earned $29.6 billion in 2024, move so quickly to accommodate a relative upstart like Spotify, which entered the US market only in 2011. And the platform's role continues to shift. As artist discovery increasingly moves to TikTok, for example, Spotify has taken on a new role as secondary destination and searchable archive, which is ironic.
Back to being a search engine.
Yeah.
So then we get into the involvement of private equity and asset management firms. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are like the big three asset management firms. They own everything, and their imprint on entertainment has been to turn everything into maximum profit slop, the least risky investment they can make. And when it comes to art and like owning all of these platforms that ideally were made to showcase and curate something that people make, it's turned into like this slop zone where we see Netflix slop, we see sequel franchise.
Yeah, like owning IP and owning song catalogs has become the business in itself. This idea that once you own the IP, you would rather keep using something that already works that costs so little.
Yes.
That you fully own. So this is where I think the article does aim to be less doom and gloom. Like, I think that was the intended purpose. The way that you're like, I walked away not feeling awful about it. He has this quote: "Movies and radio no longer pretend to be art," Max Horkheimer and Theodore Adorno wrote in 1944. "The truth that they are just business is made into an ideology in order to justify the rubbish they deliberately produce." It eases the nerves when you see that this is a feeling that people have had for now almost 100 years. 80 years ago, when some people would say, oh, cinema was great.
Yeah.
They were like, this is garbage.
And I think that we saw this a lot in like, is all pop culture awful now article?
Yeah, that's what I was calling from, yeah.
Where essentially what's happened is the mainstream has become more and more visible. It felt like things have fractured off a bit because there are so many places to look when things are mainstream, even if they are technically smaller than what was considered mainstream 30 years ago. Like the way that a TV show, 60% of all TV watchers in America were watching it. Now, when something is mainstream, obviously the audience is much smaller, but still in order to reach a mainstream status, it has to override the availability of all of the niches. And that doesn't necessarily mean those things of smaller individual interests don't exist. It just means that when we like look to what the most people are listening to, it is something that kind of sucks and is made purposefully to reach as many eyes as possible in a way that strips it of all artistic markers.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because then he also has this line earlier on that we moved past that I felt very seen by, where he says, convenient as these platforms have been for consumers and lucrative as they have become for investors, the centralization has also allowed streaming platforms to consolidate cultural power on an enormous scale. The disenfranchisement has provided new opportunities for cultural workers at every level to reassert the value of their labor. A new labor movement has emerged against the backdrop of this struggle, suggesting a more equitable path forward for the culture industries that stands to benefit workers and consumers alike. There is this other hand to it of, sure, Spotify and TikTok and streaming has allowed for a lot more slop and stuff, but also like you and I wouldn't have a podcast if it wasn't for TikTok. How many bands have you not listened to because they're not on Spotify, so it's not worth the work, but they could have become your favorite band if they had been at your fingertips? Like removing that barrier to entry does allow for a lot more visibility.
And there just are bands that I like that aren't on Spotify that I don't listen to in a playlist with the other music that I like, which is fine. Like, I don't know, you don't have to be on my playlist, but like, I think it ignores discoverability a little bit where while there is a lot of slop that gets pushed by Spotify, especially if you're using it very passively, like especially if you're just sitting there being like, feed me what you feel like feeding me. I think that there's a lot of nonsense that can be pushed to the surface there that is pushed to the surface. And I think that's something interesting in the way that streaming kind of sped past SAG and any barriers that have been put in place to protect writers and directors and actors. Like SAG, the WGA, like all these guilds had to reorganize with streaming at like a very rapid pace. With radio, there were laws in place about like pay for play was illegal. Like there were certain things in like the fairness of radio play that don't exist on Spotify, and they were able to speed right past them. I think that stuff is bad. Whereas I do think that if you're actively using some of these streaming platforms, there is a discoverability available to you that has helped a lot of smaller bands a lot. And then in turn, some of them aren't getting enough money. It like enables a certain level of touring that they wouldn't have been able to have before, but it is decreasing album sales. But maybe they wouldn't have had those either because they wouldn't have had the discoverability. I think this is a really interesting point. The basic inequality of streaming remains. Rather than seek out another fix-all app, we should acknowledge that this very model fails to meet the needs of most independent artists and listeners. Supporting art is a different equation. And I think that that's very interesting and true, that there just is no perfect model, because I think we see this with streaming is people often will like try to brainstorm another more equitable streaming platform, and none of those have taken off. Like, it doesn't solve the problems.
Something also very interesting is like last night, right before I read this article, I watched The Lives of Others, which is about a playwright and an actress in East Berlin before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it's kind of about how art can't flourish under communism, and then communism is ultimately destroyed by art. Or not literally the ideals of communists, but essentially in their socialist system, when the government owns the art processes, it's very easy to play favoritism and like squelch out the right to make art and like keep people quiet and blacklist people, and the dangers of that. And so it is very funny right now for me to be reading this article. And I think a lot of what we talk about is like the dangers of capitalism with art, but this idea that there you have the equal and opposite response of like, well, this was really bad too. It's not good when the only people who are allowed to be actors and directors are people who don't question the state and are permitted by the state and are like maybe even having to fuck the state on the side. It brings me to my second tentpole of all human societies suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's never going to be a perfect scenario for art to be created as long as there's like human existence.
Yeah. And I think it brings in this like weird question of like, what is progress and what will it look like? Because obviously the most lucrative form of album sales for bands is physical album sales. Is it to say that like no technology can enter the space once the space seems fine?
He actually talks about the monopolies that are forming and how Lina Khan, who's on Mamdani's transition team, did a lot to try to fight some of these monopolies. And like the example of like Live Nation and Ticketmaster really is fucking people up. I fucking hate using Ticketmaster. This is why we can't have monopolies. It's like the worst experience of all time. Essentially, he has this kind of like larger Marxist analysis of what happens when creative assets become financial assets. And his two case studies are Space Jam and Jay-Z lyrics. And essentially, if you are a private equity company like BlackRock and you buy Space Jam, you're going to have what happens next, which is Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Space Jam 2,
for example, follows LeBron James to various planets in outer space, each of which depict a different Warner Brothers property. The Wizard of Oz, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, DC Comics, and Austin Powers are all represented, as are characters from Gremlins, Scooby-Doo, King Kong, and A Clockwork Orange, plus product placement for McDonald's, Nike, Funko, Kraft Heinz, and General Mills. Compelled by hedge funds and asset managers that drive the cultural industries towards more and more extraction, Disney, Warner Brothers, Spielberg, and the rest of the financialized Hollywood are pursuing their own versions of flooding the zone with shit. As these back catalogs are bought, as the IP is bought out by people who never even had anything to do with the art and are mostly now using your art to sell, like, I guess, subprime mortgages eventually. You know what I mean? Like, there's such a remove. Like, we've completely married the idea of a TV show with ad breaks to just being like, the ad break is the TV show.
Yeah, so he brings 30 Rock in as a good example of a show that...
I thought that was a bad example.
Interesting.
Because like 30 Rock is doing it like as a joke. But like he even says of the 800 brands named, only like 40 are actually really product placement or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the whole point of 30 Rock is they're like parodying it.
I think it's an interesting example that just needs to be a different discussion because they're constantly mentioning brands, the percentage that is product placement is like much more effective.
I think a better example is he brings up Jay-Z, who went from talking about Cristal all the time to suddenly only talking about his personal champagne brand that he owns.
Yeah, that is a really good example.
And like what happens when like you buy stock in like 3 fashion houses and then use your songs as ads for those companies.
Yeah, and I think we see it constantly now. Mm-hmm. I mean, being mentioned in a catchy song is like one of the best advertisements for Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. I mean, did you know any of those words before?
No, they put all those companies on the map. And what happened to Kreayshawn? Where is that bitch now? This article ultimately comes to the conclusion that in order to talk about art these days, you do have to be aware of the money underneath. The critic of derivative media must no less be fluent in the languages of boardrooms and earning calls than that of sitcom dialogue or rap lyrics. The irony of aesthetic life under capitalism has always been that even the most debased cultural products contain, albeit in ideologically distorted forms, the promise of a new way of life liberated from the instrumentalizing, commodifying drives of capital. If the cultural logic of finance capital, with its degraded platforms, securitized song catalogs, and derivative media, is the train that the critic must inhabit, then it represents a shared site of struggle with workers from across the music, film, and television industries. It is in this contested landscape where the future of the culture industries will be decided. So I guess ultimately this is like a cultural piece on culture criticism, which I find, I guess, interesting to those people. I guess we're critics. We should have found it more interesting.
I did find it interesting.
I don't know if it's because we're talking about it every week, like the impact of streaming on art and stuff, that I was just like, yeah, I know, man. But there was something where I was like, oh, you got to be aware of the money. Like, I know.
I think it's worth it to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
I just think, of course, when art is like commodified, profit matters. Is that good or bad? I think we could go back and forth forever.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you very much. What's his name?
Robert Arcand.
We appreciate you. Good thinking.
Okay, do you know what else people are streaming? Movies.
So New York Times had an article called 25 Movies, Many Stars, Zero Hits, Hollywood Falls to New Lows.
Jesus Christ.
Literally nobody has gone to see a movie. Dude, After the Hunt bombed. Christie bombed. Die My Love bombed. Oh my God, they brought up that J-Lo movie. What is it called? Spider Lady?
Kiss of a Spider Woman.
The only thing that did well was Predator Badlands. And I said, okay, not in my house. Had you ever heard of that film?
Yeah, I have. I was talking to someone recently who went to go see it. They said they really liked it.
Okay, the only one that actually did well was Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another.
And the thing is, everyone says they liked it.
The problem seems to arise when there is a spectacle or an experience. Like, they can get them out to Barbie, they can get them out to these giant IMAX thrillers or whatever, but it's hard to get people to go see like rom-coms, horror.
Yeah, it says that movie marketing has become turning it into an event. Like Barbenheimer was an event.
And can I say, like, there needs to either be a reason to experience it with other people or a reason to see it on a screen bigger than yours.
And the problem is that one, streaming overall is very convenient, but also I feel like the way that movie theater going has become so wildly expensive.
So they're like pointing fingers at everybody.
Yeah.
It's the audience's fault. Americans love to complain about a deluge of superhero sequels and big budget fantasies. But what do when a bunch of dramas arrive? They ignore them. It's the news media's fault for reporting on opening weekend box office grosses. Films are declared dead before they even have a chance to find their footing.
That one I'm like, I don't know.
No, I agree with that. And the reason I agree with that is because I just read this interesting article in the Wall Street Journal about this book that was this woman's like 10th book, and it just hit the New York Times bestseller list 6 months later because of word of mouth. People have just genuinely loved it. And I do think if you hear a movie's bad, you just don't go.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that we were like, oh, Christie sucks. I don't know anybody that's seen Christie.
No one's seen Christie.
But I think that happens, that it's declared a bomb before
it gets the chance
before
to
it gets word of mouth. I do think a rom-com or something needs a word of mouth.
Yes.
Because if it doesn't have the obvious spectacle built in, you need to hear from people that it was good. But I think they go, oh, it sucked, and then they pull it. And then finally, theaters are at fault for raising prices and bombarding audiences with ads and trailers. So this guy also is like, but also part of the problem is streaming.
Hold on. I want to go back to the news media for reporting box office grosses. I guess I agree with you that they pull it before it gets a chance to find its footing. I guess it contributes to negative word of mouth because then there's a story out there that it bombed. But I do feel like they are pulling things way too quickly. And it's not because of like the reporting of the numbers. It's because of the existence of the numbers.
Yeah.
Like if the news media didn't report the numbers, the studio is still going to say, well, that movie's bombing, pull it.
Can I say, on the other hand, there was a movie this year that we were desperate to see in IMAX and we didn't get to go see it because it was completely sold out. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was this winter. And I remember being like, I hope we get to go see it in IMAX. And it was so sold out that we weren't able to do it. And then it hit streaming with sold out runs. And so what this article later brings up is the fact that on average, movies go to streaming 17 days after their theatrical release.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be 90. And that's part of the problem is, as Ashley said,
why would you go to a theater and spend an exorbitant amount of money when it's about to come out at home?
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch it there in comfort and for free, and you can look at your phone.
I will say Interstellar, I just watched this weekend, and I'm like, oh, this is a movie you would have wanted to see on an IMAX.
Yeah.
You can watch a rom-com at home.
You can watch it. And the thing is, I like going to the theater, and I feel very glad that it's a write-off.
Yeah.
Because it is obscenely expensive. When I went a couple weeks ago, I got popcorn and a water, and I was so embarrassed that I needed a water, but I was so thirsty because I think it was like towards the end of marathon training, and I was like, I just need a fucking water right now.
You're allowed. You're allowed.
No, I don't think you're allowed to buy water at the movie theater. They are gouging. They are gouging your ass.
That's so true.
I really feel like I needed a reason to purchase that water because it was like $6.50.
No, it's so expensive. And then you get there and they start 45 minutes after they said they would.
It's really difficult.
And then you're there and somebody's on their phone anyway. So it's like an expensive experience. And I do think, why would you spend all that money to go see a movie that is going to be at home in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And I do agree that the streamers have to back off a bit and give people time to like let it breathe, especially for the hits. Like Barbie was still doing giant showings when it had already hit streaming.
Yeah.
And I do think like these blockbuster tent poles need to be given time to collect as much money for the theaters as they can so that they can show the smaller.
You know, I've heard the Jennifer Lawrence one is good. I don't know that I necessarily need to see it in a theater. In fact, it seems like almost like an uncomfortable movie to watch in a theater. I do think in general, the movies that are exampled here, that are referenced here when we have, you know, After the Hunt, we saw that in a theater. I really didn't like it.
We talked about it on Patreon.
These examples are not necessarily good movies. They're saying, why aren't these smaller dramas doing well? And it's like, well, it's because these smaller dramas are
like people aren't recommending it to their friends.
Like bad to fine.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Die My Love. I've heard it's very good and I do want to go see it. But I think that one of the other problems is that not every movie is good. If people aren't inherently going to see a movie anymore, they're definitely not going to go see a movie that is bad.
So something interesting that I will say about the pulling the first weekend box office reviews is they don't reveal how much money they made in streaming. So even though these films may go on to become classics, there is an air of all anybody publicly knows is that it bombed at the box office.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I'm not like saying that they definitely should. I just think out of the other issues, that one seems honestly minor to me.
Yeah. I mean, it is just so funny to think that how much money a movie made at the box office weekend one has any. All that means is how much hype was about getting to the movie theater that has nothing to do with the actual film itself.
Mm-hmm. And I think a good example of movies that do well, one battle after another, I've heard nothing but good things.
And it was fun to watch in a theater.
Yeah.
On a big screen. I didn't need to see Julia Roberts' beautiful sweater big. I could have seen that little.
I guess something that I find interesting about this article is the way that when we're talking about the smaller dramas that aren't hitting at the box office, we're talking about really adequate films that still cost like $30 to $70 million that people just aren't really liking. And it's like, yeah, they didn't recoup their money, even though if you talk to critics and people who like love movies for the last like 7 years, they've been talking about the way the $5 to $9 million small drama and rom-com has been completely destroyed by the studio system. And like those are the movies that people are excited to see. And also if the studios were to reinvest in some of those smaller movies.
Look at Anyone But You. I think the reason it succeeded is people ran to the theaters to show an interest in Shakespeare-based rom-com.
Exactly.
It didn't need to be $30 million. You could have just had them in America.
Exactly.
You didn't have to pay for everyone to fly to Australia. That was like a choice you made.
It was a choice you made. And I think that that movie succeeded because it was a thirst for rom-coms. It was not a thirst for Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell or anything about that movie. If you really loved that movie, that's fine for you. I can't imagine ever watching it again. I would watch Wonka again.
I mean, we've seen Wonka 3 times.
I know I'm giving an example of a movie I'm going to watch again. But I'm just saying, I think that there is a thing in here that doesn't quite land on the fact that when the studio isn't giving people what they want, they're not getting what they want.
All right, I'm thinking about how our group chat with Mac is Wonka's oomps. Because like, you know, like on Twitter, it's like oomps, like one of my followers. It's like oomps, like one of his Oompa Loompas. That's so funny.
I love getting a text from the oomps. Long story short, people are not going to the movies. Whose fault is it? I think the movies.
Anyway, should we go on to our final moment?
Yeah.
Okay, so this month, Rolling Stone, is it month or week?
It's hard to tell because a cover doesn't really mean much.
I actually get Rolling Stone delivered. They're huge. They're like big A4 pieces of paper. There's a cover story on Rolling Stone called How Lady Gaga Found Herself Again. I Feel Lucky to Be Alive. And it's by Brian Hyatt. And I have to say, I loved this celebrity profile. And I don't often love him.
I like Brian Hyatt a lot.
I don't know him personally or even professionally. This is my first time recognizing him by name.
I think you'd like his work.
I guess so far 1 for 1, Bri. Anyway, he talks to Lady Gaga, and the thing that makes this interview so interesting is 1, I feel Lady Gaga's very evolved and has changed a lot, and 2, he interviewed her 12 years ago, right before she put out her second ever album, And so he has those notes and he's comparing the change. And it's really like an interesting story of growth in a human being and like the payoffs of success and the heartbreak of success and growing up. And I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, I found this article really interesting. I mean, here's something interesting about my experience with Lady Gaga.
Please.
I love her and I don't pay that much attention to her. Like, it's this weird thing where every time I'm reminded of Lady Gaga, I love Lady Gaga, but I don't actively follow her, I think, in almost any way. And I also, as much as I admire a lot of her work, I feel like there's something about what's in this article referred to as like the most Gaga, like the pinnacle of Gaga. And I like all of it. Like when I listen to it, I'm like, this is really fun pop music and really good pop music, but I don't gravitate towards it. I was such a big fan of Joanne.
Interesting.
The album that I feel like is most widely considered a flop by Lady Gaga. I mean, and it's not even necessarily like critically considered a flop. I just think it literally didn't do well. I fucking loved Joanne. I listened to it hundreds of times and I still listen to it. I thought that was just like incredible work. And as much as I know that that's not like, that was just like a side project-y kind of thing that she was doing. And I knew that wasn't going to be like the path for the rest of her music. I was such a fan of it. And I like it when she goes kind of like singer-songwriter mode.
What can I say? I think the whole point of this article is that she's realized there is no such thing as the path.
Yeah.
There's like, if you want to be a human being and an artist who continues in this industry at that level, you have to allow yourself to like do what's coming to you next and not create some niche that you drill down into infinitely.
And it's about the pull against the fact that they're going to try to make you drill infinitely.
But also then recognizing what's coming from a place of curiosity versus what's coming from a place of fear. Well, I can't give you another Born This Way, so instead I'll give you a jazz thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is a middle ground.
Also, one of the greatest music videos of all time is Telephone.
I, similarly to you, am not a huge Gaga fan in that, like, I've never loved her pop music. I feel like Born in This Way, Bad Romance, and obviously even Just Dance. I mean, Just Dance, I like can't even tell you, I'm in my childhood house shower because I would always listen to like the Interactive 9 at Night. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm in the shower listening to that song and Beautiful by Big Sean. I feel like we're like the only two songs that ever played on Z100 growing up. Obviously, they're important time relics, but you know what my favorite Lady Gaga songs are? The Cure.
Okay.
And Paparazzi.
Oh, I love Paparazzi.
But anyway, my point is, similarly, I haven't always been the biggest fan, but I've always had a lot of respect for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this article is a lot about like the truth behind what it was like being Lady Gaga. And it turns out it's been fucking hard. And it's so interesting because she talks about like the response to art pop and how people didn't like it. And it kind of like broke her. And because of that, she started doing jazz and she did Joanne and she was doing all these things because of the stress it put her under and how she was like on lithium when she was doing all these movies and she's been having panic attacks and she kind of had a mental breakdown. The adrenaline rush at 19 that she had when she was on stage. She used to say, if I'm not on stage, I feel like I'm dead. And now she has like a minor panic attack every time she gets out there. And it is just such an interesting change. At the end, she jokes about wanting to have a family. And he brings up her own quote being like, even when I have a baby, I'll still be 100% Lady Gaga. And she goes, oh yeah, I lied.
And it's so interesting because you're like a 24-year-old pop star who's on top of the world would say that and believe it with their whole chest.
Or a 24-year-old who's climbing the world.
I
think it's somebody who's like looking up the mountain saying, I'm going to win. I want this so bad.
And this is who I am at my core. I'm Gaga. I'm 100% Gaga.
And how Mayhem is such an interesting album, especially when you consider the tour visuals, because, you know, here she is saying like, I've recognized how I have to protect myself. I used to be Lady Gaga all the time. I used to be a partier. And now I have this boyfriend who loves the real me. He calls me Stephanie. He cares about my soul.
I thought that was such an interesting part of this piece that the first time he interviewed her, her name was Gaga.
Yeah. And that now she's been trying to like figure out which the different parts. So the new tour is like these three parts of her in collision. And it's ego that wants to be fame, like the Mayhem Gaga, the Gaga that's like the audience member looking in, and then the part of her that she's trying to protect. And it's funny because the reporter, the journalist points out like, so you're taking this trauma you've had and you're making it the center stage of this giant experience that you have to relive every night. And she's like, yeah, I guess that's like the thing I'll never be able to stop doing. But at least now I recognize, at least it is in conflict, whereas it used to be so dominated, it seems.
Yeah.
By the Mayhem Gaga.
I don't know. I think exploring your trauma through art in that way feels artistic.
Yeah, she's a real artist. She talks about it like when she used to get a lot of backlash for a while for being like performative. And she's like, that just was how I was handling things, that I've always been trying to do art. I also think the Michael of it all is very interesting. She has this new boyfriend. They've been together for 5 years. They were introduced by her mom, believe it or not. The dynamic seems to be he's level-headed and he's serious. And he's not just her muse, but he's her
collaborator.
And I'm really interested in like the gendered look at this because I think you've got the Travis Kelce, you've got Michael, you've got like all of these boyfriends that are swirling around and like the way that people get frustrated. I guess a better comp would be honestly when Taylor Swift gave Joe Alwyn writing credit.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I first saw about this interview, I was seeing mostly quotes from him. And I actually even put on Threads, I was like, was this a Michael interview? Like, why are the quotes that I think I'm seeing the most Michael quotes? And I do wonder if because she's been so isolated and self-contained that people have had a hard time thinking of her as like needing this partner. But it's interesting if he had been a wife, the way that he talks about, he says, her business is music, so I learned music. If she had wanted to open a restaurant, I would have learned to make pasta. Like I'm in the business of supporting her. And that means I have to get what she's doing. And she gave him songwriting credit and stuff. I do think if it had been reversed, nobody would question it. Whereas something, as soon as it's a man, it feels very like, why are you giving him all this credit? Where at first I would have bristled, I found it quite sweet and important and honest about what it takes to be somebody at her level. When you have somebody that's like a star at this level, the partner has to be in support.
Yeah, I think that the sexist part of it is that if it were a woman,
she wouldn't be even in the article.
She wouldn't be in the article.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the role a lot of rock stars or like celebrity wives play. Like who's Matthew McConaughey's wife?
I was actually just thinking about her, Camila Alves.
Yes. And I think that it's like kind of a similar position. And I think that he talks about her.
Or Miles Teller and Kelly.
Yes. I think that, you know, in order to achieve a certain level of success, it's so invaluable to have a partner that's all in that way with you to support you and like be your right hand person who's like supportive and engaging with your creative pursuits and like offering suggestions and then helping you stay grounded in who you are. I think that he's largely referred to in this article as something of a like stabilizer for Lady Gaga, which I think she's very lucky to have. I don't want to sit here and be like, well, she's so lucky to have him. But something I'm very struck by with her is the way that she's like a creative spark, but also like a marketing and like business smart person. And I don't want to say genius. I don't know what's a genius, but like I think she's so good at both parts, the creativity and the business. That isn't something that just like lives inside of you without conflict. Like you see her completely destabilized throughout this article. And then you find out about her meeting Michael, who like helps her kind of hold on to reality. And then you hear mayhem and you're like, well, obviously that mixture worked.
I also think it's like ridiculous to think that somebody who is this creative and professionally driven could have a partner that wasn't all in with them. Like it's so much a part of her. And so like our friendship is built around our mutual creative endeavor.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense to have somebody that's like in the boat with you.
Exactly. And it's something that like, I mean, I think we've both talked about this. We wouldn't be doing things successfully without. We both work on separate projects, but like, I don't think I would have gotten to the point of confidence of that without having like a collaborative project to like leap with.
Yeah. So it's just interesting the way like the partner, the romantic / business partner, how it's perceived by different people.
Yeah.
And even I mean, like, I'm kind of like, ugh.
Like, why does he need a song credit? But also, is it sweet that she gives him a song credit?
And you know what I mean? Like, if we could take it and give like that kind of credit to like the women behind every successful man is a powerful woman.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will say it's like worth a read. It's really interesting, I think, for anybody at any field who's very career oriented to like see her arc and see like how it's just not sustainable ultimately, especially when you're a business like she is, where you yourself are the business. And so everybody needs a piece of you in that way.
Ugh, she's so talented. I feel like every time you hear her talk about her work, you're like, well, that's one of the ones where she's so good at what she does. And I'm really happy she didn't go insane.
Anyway, would we like to do a caps off?
Yeah, Claire, where are you? Which direction are you tipping your cap?
I'm tipping my cap to Kim Kardashian.
Oh, how fun.
So Kim Kardashian recently posted a video of her studying from as much as 2 weeks before the bar to show how heartbreaking it was for her personally to not pass. And the thing that makes me laugh so hard is she says, and I quote, "Every time I feel like I'm a step ahead, something happens to try to stop me from doing this." And I have to say, to be like, something happened to stop me from doing this. This, I guess, is becoming a lawyer. And the thing that happened was you failed the test. Like, that's just such a funny way to refer to the test.
Something happened to me. And what happened to me is that I
didn't have what it took. I like love that framing. Next time I just like go to a workout class and stop in the middle because I'm tired. I'll go, every time I try to do this, finish a workout class, something happens. I choose to stop.
Yeah, every time I like am planning to work out and then I don't, I'm going to say every time I try to do this, something happens. And the thing that happened is me choosing sleep. Can I read the caption?
Yeah.
I've shared so much of this journey with you. And this summer, I documented some of the final 2 weeks of studying, the ups, the downs, and everything in between. I mean, how much of a roller coaster could it have been for 2 weeks? On November 7th, I found out that I didn't pass the bar. It was disappointing, but it wasn't the end. This dream means too much to me to walk away from, so I'm going to keep studying, keep learning, and keep showing up for myself until I get there. I guess the question remains, like, why?
I mean, I will say, what else is there?
What do you mean? What else is there? She has a $1 billion company and she's starring in a TV show.
Yeah, but
it's so much stuff to be doing to then also just like be a lawyer for shits and giggles because she's obviously not even a good lawyer. It's not like she's like, oh, and then I won't have to hire a lawyer. Like she's still going to need a lawyer because she's not a good lawyer.
She's been on this journey for like 10 years. I feel like, why not? I get it.
I guess I can say why not because it's not working. Much like the Kardashian credit card. I don't know. Out of all of the things that they've quietly sunsetted and just like acted like it never happened, why not Kim's lawyerdom?
Bring back Kylie's dogs.
I feel like she's searching for this I told you so moment, but because she's publicly failed so many times.
Yeah, like it's not that impressive anymore. It does feel like at some point somebody would just randomly get enough right answers.
Anyway, good luck to you, Kim. My head is tipped in such a way to cover my eyes because I don't want to see the next one.
I hope nothing happens to you again. And by that, I mean like your own failure. All right. Thanks, guys. Good night.
And good noticings.